Hello, everyone. Welcome to the November 22nd, 2022 meeting of the Waynesboro Area School District Board of Directors. Please rise if you're here for the pledge.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's do a roll call since I think we have one missing person, Ms. Cruiser.
Dr. Royer.
Here.
Mrs. Miles,
Here.
Mrs. Strite, Mr. Marvin,
Here.
Mrs. Zimmerman,
Here.
Mrs. Sullivan is not here, Mrs. Fortney,
Here.
Mr. Smith,
Here.
and Mrs. Harold.
I'm here. And of course, anybody watching will notice that Dr. Klein is not with us today, so our resident expert will be Dr. Stern. So, Dr. Klein will probably not be back at a board meeting until January. So we will. Okay, therefore we don't have, well, I'm sorry, we have to approve the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
I make a-
Okay, yes, any corrections?
Yeah, I
changes? Go ahead,
apologize.
Dr.
You did.
Stern.
So under business number C1, we do not have a student waiver, so
Okay.
we can strike that from the
Okay.
agenda.
Okay, with that correction, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Okay, questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes, do we have a motion to approve last meeting's minutes?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
You, questions, corrections, anything on the last minutes? Not all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we do not have a superintendent report. Anything you'd like to report today, Dr. Starheim?
Yes, I'd like to acknowledge the food service department on November 17th. They served 2,954 holiday meals. So great job. From that group of holiday meals, most of them were students, but we also served 669 adults. I believe I sent an email to the board as well as the entire district that Mr. Vensel's chamber choir, Wash's chamber choir, is going to New York City to perform in Carnegie Hall. They do have some room on the school bus, no, I'm sorry, school bus, coach bus. If you're interested in attending and you can ride along and enjoy the show. And also we had a comprehensive planning meeting just yesterday. We had about 25 people in attendance, and we have another meeting scheduled for December 19th.
How many of those do you usually have?
Comprehensive planning.
Completed, yeah.
Right now we have one scheduled December 19th, and then the other one, I believe it's January 9th or 23rd. I'm not sure. I have to double check.
Okay.
So,
Just as an addendum,
Mhm.
I emailed Mr. Bensel to ask when the concert at Carnegie Hall would be, and it is Sunday afternoon at 2
on
I
January
believe-
15th.
on January 15th. And I believe the bus leaves early that day, and then we'll be returning from,
It's a quick trip.
well, yeah, at like 3:45. Well, actually leaving New York at 3:45 the following day on Monday. So just as an addendum,
On Monday.
but anybody
Okay.
who just wants to go to the concert, it's 2 p.m. on Sunday.
Which we've had before in a blizzard, as I recall. Remember that? Couple people went. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have two people interested in public comment tonight. Mr. Pence is at the top. Oh, you ready to go first? Okay, Ms. Schaefer, you can go first.
Glasses aren't been great tonight, but I don't have anything to say much except, oh, weren't you Schaefer? 13593 and just wanted to recommend Hooverville Elementary School. What a great Veterans Day program they had over there. And 50 veterans, and every one of them spoke. It was long. Especially since my 20-month-old was bouncing around on my son's lap the whole time, applauded when everybody else wasn't. So that is so.
Any talking to this. That I really like. However, being from Maryland, we moved across the line in '04. I went to Maryland schools all my life and graduated from Maryland State universities. And my boys both graduated from Smithsburg. So we are 100 feet from the border. And so it's really hard for me, especially since I work as a poll watcher for election day, that we have school. And I think that at least the patriotism was really, really, really amazing by them, that by Hooverville. And I just hope all the other schools had just as wonderful patriotic events. Thank you so much.
Well, I was at Summit Views, which was held at the high school, and it was wonderful as well. And every single veteran stood up and talked,
yeah.
introduced themselves. So it was great as well.
Oh, yeah. My dad and two brothers and my nephew, we have lots of military in our family, Eagle Scouts and appointments to West Point and all that kind of stuff. So rah, rah, ree. Okay. But if we could ever have schools closed, I'd be even happier on election day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Spence, ready?
All right, Sarah Pence, 14728 Honadell Road here in Waynesboro. I just had a couple things that I wanted to speak about. Mostly it all just evolves around academics. I had spent a little time looking through the PDE site, the Act 13 building level scores that were published. And I was a little sad. And I started looking through thinking maybe it was COVID. So I started to go down the rabbit hole and go back and look back at scores prior to COVID. And then I was thinking about all of that, wanted to speak at the last meeting and didn't get the opportunity because of my own fault. So with letting me think about this even more, I thought back about something Dr. Klein had said that hit me, that he wasn't sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to say something about the numbers for enrollment have been shifting with virtual and private, and how can we as Waynesboro Area School District look to keep our students at the public school instead of the virtual programs or private schools. And so one of the things that I was thinking about was when I looked at these scores, I was like, well, is this all Keystone scores? And I was under the impression that it was based on attendance, graduation, and PSAs too. Is that correct?
It's more than just a
Just
score.
more than just like a
Correct.
score out of 100,
That's correct.
right? It's like kind of all encompassing. So then, because I'm on the PTO at Fairview, I started to look at Fairview scores. And I mean, obviously, like Margie, she has a little bit more of an interest in Hooverville, and I have a little bit more of an interest in Fairview, but I want the whole district to do well. So when I was kind of looking at these scores, before COVID, Fairview actually for 2018, 2019 was at 56.5 points out of 100. And then after COVID for 21, 22, we were only at a 60.3. So, and then I was looking back, like, what is the other trends? I looked at a couple like Fairview and CAMS North, CAMS South, some of the middle schools, and it looks like some of the like our middle school has been anywhere from 66.4 to like 60.3. They were at 50.8 last year. So I was thinking, is that like a middle school thing? Because I remember middle school, that was not fun. Like that's a hard year for a lot of reasons. And so I was looking, and CAMS North and South, they actually did pretty good in their scores. And so I kind of got off topic here, but CAMS North and South, they were both in the 80s, and Cash's was only a 66 and our Wash's was 65.4. So I don't know that COVID had a lot to do with it. And so I was wondering, like, what can we do? How can we look at like academics? Because I obviously understand it's more than just the teachers, and there's a cultural change. Parents need to be involved. From the PTO, I don't just do PTO because I want to butter up Mrs. McGuire. I want the kids to love Fairview. I want them to have a playground. I want my kids to want to continue to come. And it's academic success is graduation, their attendance. So that's important. So I was like, well, what can we do? And then I found out that they had the meetings that you were talking about from yesterday. That was the first one, the academic planning session. So I was happy to hear about that. And then I realized it was an RSVP. So is that something that is like an invite? There's only so many seats, or how do people, if like myself or other community members want to come, how is that's something that could be followed up in an email or?
Absolutely. I believe I had sent an email to Kelly McGuire because I've had a lot of contact with her. So the comprehensive planning process is open to any community member, any parent. I think we had representation from Fairview yesterday as
Yeah,
well.
Lindsay said, I just was saying like, I didn't realize, we talk about things, but we're all busy too. So
Sure.
I'm just trying to say, I'm happy to hear. I don't always want to come up here. I'm not trying to always come up here and be negative. I'm happy to hear that that's happening.
I can forward the email. Well, I believe it's on our website as well, but I know that people aren't just searching our website necessarily. December 19th.
Yeah.
At 5:30. So there's three separate meetings. We may have to have additional ones, but that might be the meeting you might be more interested in because we will be looking at specific student data. So you're more than welcome to come. I'll make sure that Mrs. McGuire has the invite and we will
Okay.
follow up.
Okay, I know I'm out of time. The last thing I just wanted to say very quickly was with the academic success, I saw on here the appointment of the superintendent. So as we look at filling an assistant superintendent, I'm assuming maybe it's Dr. Rita Sterner-Hein, if that's going to be a position that we fill within, if it is. So my question is, if it is her and we do fill within, I had asked you about community involvement for a superintendent position. And so what would that look like? And maybe you can get back to me another time or an email, that's fine. But the point was, if we do hire within, what would that look like from our own administration or staff that are going to be applying? And what would that process look like in terms of, are we going to look at academic success from some of these other buildings? And just, I don't actually have a specific question about that, but just how does that process look like if we hire within? Is that something that could be reported back if that is the case?
I'll be happy to give you a call tomorrow. You come tomorrow?
I actually will be home. I have the day.
I'll give you a call because
What
that's
days are
it's
my
a
day
long
off?
answer to that. And I'm not sure this is the.
No, I understand
Yeah,
that.
I'll
That's
give you-
why
I'll
I'm
give you a call
saying.
tomorrow. What? Give me time.
Sure. I dropped my daughter off at like 8:45, so anytime after like 9:15 or 9:30 would be fine. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, on to board reports. Anybody have anything to report?
Budget met last week. We're in the still very early planning process for budget. And so we will not be meeting in December. So the next budget meeting will be in January. And then I don't think there was anything big that came out of that budget meetings.
Okay.
Again, kind of just more big picture now, and then as things become clearer in the new year, we'll have a better idea of where things stand.
Other reports?
And we'll be having another meeting.
Academic will meet next Wednesday, 10:30. Next Wednesday, not tomorrow. Talk about facilities.
Facilities met, and basically we are starting to see due to COVID slow down the process for a lot of the contractors. So now that's beginning to improve. So some of the projects that we have are finally starting.
And some of them. They on here tonight?
A little bit of
Yeah.
chemical consumer.
That's okay.
Equipment for that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, is that it for that? Okay, moving on. Well, we've had a little mix up with our student board or student rep. And the one who was supposed to go to the report is not here. So therefore, River's here. Glad you're here to get what we're saying. Can talk back to the other kids at school if they have any questions about what went on, but we won't have a report from tonight. Okay, now moving on to business. So we have eliminated number 1. 2 is personnel. Dr. Sternheim.
Thank you, Mrs. Harrell. I'd like to direct your attention to the personnel items in board docs. You have resignation of support staff, reassignment of professional staff, reassignment of support staff, and additional confirmations, additions, corrections, and details are needed for payroll purposes for new support staff. Appointments of support staff, continuation of appointments for before and after school staff, appointments of additional support staff, appointments of extracurricular staff, appointments of substitute support staff. Continuing, we have reassignment of a position at the middle school, appointments of support staff, appointments of extracurricular staff. And the final listing is items for 3 individuals for medical and unpaid leave. Recommendation is to approve as listed.
Motion?
Move
Move
to,
to approve.
second.
Okay. Questions for Dr. Sternheim? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Right, next personnel item is the appointment of our new superintendent who will be replacing Dr. Klein. How about a nomination for a a grand announcement?
I would love to do that.
Okay,
It is an honor and a privilege, if I may. When Dr. Klein has- I'll get to it up here. Of the Williamsport Area School District. beginning of 2003, with starting salary of $105,000, net salary of like contract insurance obligation. Dr. Sterner Hine has been with us since 1992. 30 years. He received her doctorate from Widener University in 2012 and a number of accomplishments, superintendent's letter of eligibility, student study certification, principal certification. Because we got that.
Okay.
And-
Yes, we did.
And Master of Science in Public Administration from Shippensburg and a Master of Science in Public Administration, Bachelor's of Science Public Administration from Shippensburg. She served in various roles in our district. She's been an elementary principal. She's secondary principal. She served as Director of Professional Personnel Services. Started out as a social studies teacher, I believe.
subbing for me.
Subbing for-
when I was on sabbatical. I taught her everything she knows.
You did not let me keep your podium though. I'm still upset about that. so.
And then Doug has done just a stellar job as assistant superintendent since 2017. When I retired from the school district. So it's certainly an honor to appoint her this evening as the superintendent. So that is.
And we'll give you a copy of that, Aaron. Thank you. Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? So all those in favor of appointing Dr. Sternheim to be our next superintendent, please say aye.
Aye.
And I'm seeing her number 1 fan, who is her number 1 fan. And I know, that she appreciates you, Derek. Maybe more than she says, I don't know. I've heard that, so
Actually, she says that.
she does say that. So. Okay, so
Yeah, it's not like-
congratulations. And she'll be sitting in this seat next time. Okay,
Thank you.
on to the next item, which is bus and van drivers.
Thank you. We have 2 drivers for the district and 1. They've met the requirements and we're.
Motion,
Second.
questions, anybody? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, on to first reading of some new policies. Have a motion? We're not really acting. This should be this should just be a discussion. Okay, so this is the first
Right.
reading of these policies. That would of course have to go to the second reading. Anybody on policy want to just give us an synopsis
Yeah,
of this?
I'm going to make the motion to approve the first reading of policy
Krista?
201. Admission of students, 204.1 educational trips and 702 gifts, grants and donations. I was not at the meeting, so.
Anybody else?
I-
Policy?
I believe everything is as we discussed. In gifts and donations, I did find under authority, the second sentence, the board reserves the right to refuse any gift note. And
Okay.
Anything else?
Is there a change in the admission? I mean, haven't the kids always had to be at 5 by September 1st? It's a policy change.
To address that. Okay, so what we did is we added a section upon some review under enrollment health habit guidelines. So we
Oh.
haven't changed anything in terms of the expectations for the age that the child
Okay.
needs to be. But we again, reviewing some additional policies locally, we essentially added this section as just general guidelines from a parental perspective in preparing their child. This is stuff that we normally go over
Okay.
during kindergarten registration orientation. It's in a policy, but obviously, as it suggests, we're going to continue to work with all students.
Thank you.
Anything else, anyone?
educational trips, am I correct in saying that the big difference there is that the form used to be submitted 5 days in advance, and now it will be 10 days. Is that correct?
Yeah, we had noticed there were some inconsistencies with our form that we were utilizing on the building level, as well as some information regarding makeup work. So what we tried to do is make sure that our policy was most reflective of the form.
Just a general question of these three policies, I think they're all good and I think we ought to have them. Are any of these three state mandated? I know we have some policies that the state mandates us have. Are any of these three as a part of that, or these are just good for us to have policy?
I would say admission of students required.
Okay.
Okay, and I would say educational trips is.
Okay.
I think gifts, grants and donations, I wouldn't say that one is required,
But good
but I
to,
think it's probably a good idea
Agreed.
to have one.
yeah.
It's good practice.
I think my reason is that I think all of these are, again, good to have, but some of the policies we pass are because the state mandates that we pass them. Sort of thing. So I recognize this is just the first reading of these updates, but while I'm in favor of them all, you know, some of them we have to do regardless, even if we're not in favor of them.
Okay, if not, all those in favor, please say aye.
I need a,
Aye.
I need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
Second.
yes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Of school, we have problems with the dress code. Dress code update. Who's talking about that?
I don't
Talk
know.
about it, Mrs. Zimmerman?
Mrs. Zimmerman's on.
I'll leave it
policy.
to Dr. Stern.
Actually, the committee met, discussed, agreed on. I feel that this is a very realistic dress code for our students. And hopefully this will also be realistic for administrators too.
No, and we've worked very hard making some revisions over the course of like perhaps 2 months now. So I believe all my admin have reviewed, and so we're prepared to move forward. The change we would do then is we would add this to as administrative regulations on the policy, and then the changes will be then added into our handbooks. At this point, they're more or less electronic, then so we'll just make those changes. I believe at least one of the buildings have already communicated some of the change. That was what.
And one of the big goals with amending this is always to make it more clear what we find to be acceptable and not, so this ambiguity is gone, you know. high can the holes be? Whatever it might be. So this makes it clearer for, especially for admin.
So is this? I think in the motion, probably have an effective date that it's today, the date that.
Yeah, we will go ahead. We could officially share it out tomorrow. I believe, like I said, there was one particular building that
That's
had
right.
shared it out earlier and had shared it. And it's only because our teachers also have to have an understanding because they're also, helping us enforce dress code. And so they had to have a clear understanding of what the. So-
And is there a plan? Take this to parents for this year?
Normally I think we could just put that in, one of their standard communications, like like a borough blast, but then we also do actually link this.
Okay, hopefully everybody's read over the changes. Oh, we need a motion.
I'll move to approve the dress code. As presented. Number.
Third, I guess.
2010.
Second.
Anything else? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Science, ready for our new room, Mr. Holtzman.
Yes, ma'am, we are. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, so you're pointing this way. So this is the equipment that we need to start using for the family consumer science. This was the room that we're still working on. We still have some work to do into the room, but this is the equipment that the teacher was able to go through there and identify that they need for the program. Of note, a couple things. One is we did ask them to go back through with another vendor, and so they were able to pull out about $1,700 worth of cost, finding some lower cost items. So I want to thank Mr. Adams for making that recommendation to save us some dollars there. And then also sometimes districts will put this in bids, for example, from companies like the general construction contractor or something along those lines. But by pulling it out, you're not paying that additional markup. So at least you're saving that side of it as well. And again, these are going to be items that will last a long time. I mean, this is truly an investment. So this isn't this isn't an annual cost you're going to see repeatedly. Certainly you might have some small items here and there, but we keep equipment for a long time. So it's not unusual. You would see a room staff for 10 to 15 to 20 years in a case like this.
Well, and back several years ago when we got family consumer science back in, pay for the equipment.
Sure.
Fortunately, some of the other stuff we had disappeared or sold. So we had to perhaps more than we were hoping to, but something that you have to if you're going to program started, and we have. So do we have a motion to approve the expenditures for this room that will start up hopefully second semester?
Move to approve.
Second semester.
Second.
Second semester. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
Thank you.
budget items, Mr. Holtzman.
Yes, ma'am. For your discussion and action, we have the checks for both the general fund and the cafeteria fund, as well as payments for those. We also have some requisitions in there for the board. There are some items right at the tail end there for appliances for that room that we just talked about. We're giving some kind of flat dollar amounts. Those are probably the maximum we think they would be. Mr. Adams wants to wait to see some items go on sale here between now and when we need them. We don't need them today, but we do want to basically kind of set a ceiling on what those would be for those appliances. So that's why we're putting that item in there as a requisition in that manner. We think the price will be a little bit lower than that, but maybe not a lot, but a little bit lower for some sales. Then we also just have an update on the budget income and expenses. We are picking up this year's and last year's information there for you as well as we're finishing up with the audit. Audit's not finished, but going well. So.
Motion,
Move to approve.
second.
Second.
Okay. Okay, questions for Mr. Holtzman?
Is Mr. Adams going to get up super early on Friday for some of those sales?
Mr. Adams gets up very early to begin with, so I think if the store opens at 4, he would already have been there. So yeah, he gets up there very early. Yeah, good point. I like that.
He doesn't have to, but
It might help. I like that.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Ooh, okay, any more Clayton comments?
I would just like to thank the board for their confidence in me and for their support over the last, well, not all of us have been here for 5.5 years, but it has been an incredible experience. Also want to thank the admin that are in the audience for their support. I elected to start here 32 years ago, and I've not left, and I've had an amazing ride at this point, and I'm very excited and honored to be the next superintendent, and I'm really looking forward to doing great things in the Waynesburg across the board. So thank you.
We know you're gonna give it your all and have
Oh, yeah.
great success. No doubt she's gonna give it her all. We know that. Okay, the only other thing I don't think got mentioned was our marching band getting first
Yeah.
place. in the
First place in Chambersburg Parade.
Chambersburg
awesome.
Parade.
I saw them in Waynesboro and they did look great.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know, Waynesboro put out their winners today. They'll call her somebody.
Well,
Do you have it?
we're never eligible for our own, right? Or are
Right.
we?
No,
I don't think we are.
and Chambersburg is not eligible for
Right,
theirs.
right.
But I think Chambersburg took first place in ours, I think.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a deal there.
They were impressive.
Were they good?
And our band was very impressive too.
Anybody
Did not
else?
know that.
I don't know how I picked that up, but I thought I picked that up somewhere.
Yeah,
That's how it used to be.
that's how it has been.
Yeah. Anybody else? For the good of the order here? Okay, we will be adjourning. We will be in executive session for personnel. Will not be coming back. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks, everybody. It was a short meeting tonight. Happy Thanksgiving.